The woman's hand came up slowly, reaching for nothing, just reaching, the way people do when their body is asking for help their voice can't manage anymore. Nobody stopped. Not the man in the North Face jacket who walked past at a good clip, eyes on his phone. Not the young couple who glanced over, then back at each other. Not the woman with the stroller who slowed for exactly 1 second and then kept moving. 41 people passed that bus shelter between 7:14 and 7:52 in the evening. Nora Beauchamp counted. She counted because she had nothing else to do, because her legs had stopped working right, and her phone was dead, and the temperature had dropped 12 degrees since she'd sat down. She counted because counting was the only thing keeping her mind from going somewhere dark. 41 people, and then the 40 seconds stopped. But before that night, before the bus shelter, before the choice that split everything into before and after. Let me tell you who this woman was. Her name was Nora Beauchamp, 71 years old. Former line cook turned breakfast short-order specialist at a diner called Mel's on Crestwood Avenue, where she'd worked for 19 years until her knees finally said enough. She had thick white hair she kept pinned up, hands permanently creased from decades of grease and heat, and a face that most people glanced at and quietly decided wasn't worth a second look. Not unkind, just old, just tired, just the kind of woman who becomes invisible at a certain age, in a certain kind of city, and nobody notices because nobody's looking. She lived alone in a 2-bedroom apartment on the 4th floor of a building on Fairfield Street, 12 minutes by bus from her daughter's house. The second bedroom had a twin bed with a quilt she'd sewn herself, because her granddaughter Lily slept over most Fridays. That was the best part of her week, the only part she planned around. She'd retired 8 months ago, not by choice. Her right knee had buckled on the kitchen mat during a Tuesday morning rush, and the doctor had said with the clarity doctors reserve for things they've already decided. No more standing 8 hours a day. She'd listened. She'd gone home. She'd spent 3 weeks learning how to fill her time without a uniform to put on. The apartment was paid for. Barely. Social Security plus a small pension from Mel's. The owner had been decent about that at least. She had $214 in her checking account on the 1st of the month, and she usually had about $40 left by the 28th. That $40 was not extra. That was emergency. That was the cushion between her and calling her daughter for money, which she refused to do, had refused, for 11 years. Since the divorce, since she'd had to start over at 60, with nothing but a uniform, and a willingness to get up at 4 in the morning. She'd built her life back with her own 2 hands. She wasn't going to ask anyone to carry it now. Thursday evening, she'd taken the number 9 bus to her daughter's place for dinner. Simple meal, Lily running around in socks on hardwood floors. Her daughter Caroline pouring wine Nora didn't drink and telling her about a new job opportunity. Normal. Good. The kind of evening that fills you up quietly. She'd left at 7. Caught the bus on Meridian. The number 9 back toward Fairfield. Except the number 9 didn't come. Not at 7:08. Not at 7:20. She checked the transit app. Her phone was at 11%. And the app said delayed, no estimated time. She waited. The bench in the shelter was wet from earlier rain, and the wind had picked up and she had her good coat on. The gray wool one, but good didn't mean warm, not at this temperature. She hadn't eaten enough at dinner, hadn't wanted to seem like she was hungry even though she was, even though Caroline would have happily made her a plate and a half without a word. Pride is a strange thing. It keeps you upright until it doesn't. By 7:30, her phone was dead. By 7:40, the cold had moved through the wool and settled into her bones the way cold does when you're past 70, when your body doesn't fight it the way it used to. Her knee throbbed. The bad one. She tried to stand, to walk somewhere warmer, but the pain came up sharp and she sat back down hard. She raised her hand. Just a little. Not dramatically. Just, someone might see. 41 people. She'd counted to 41 when the 40 seconds stopped. His name was Otis. Not the one in the file, a different man. An entirely different story. His full name was Otis Bernard Crenshaw. Wait. No. His name was Leonard James Rafferty. 63 years old. Retired postal worker, 9 years out of service. He walked with a slight hitch in his left hip from a fall off a loading dock in 2008. Wore a green canvas work jacket he'd had since 2001 and had no intention of replacing, and carried a reusable grocery bag from a store that had closed 4 years ago because he saw no reason to throw away a perfectly good bag. He was walking home from his Thursday poker game. He played cards with 4 other men at a table in Eddie Hollis's garage. Nothing serious, $5 buy-in, more about the company than the cards. He'd lost $3 tonight, which he considered a fine outcome. He was in a decent mood, not a great one, just the steady good mood of a man who has made peace with the shape of his days. He noticed the bus shelter the way he always noticed it. It was on his route home, 2 blocks from his apartment on Granger Street. Usually it was empty at this hour, or had a teenager on a phone. Tonight there was a woman on the bench with her hand up, not waving, just up. Leonard stopped, not after a second of deliberation. Just stopped, the way you stop when something registers before your brain has finished deciding. "Ma'am, you all right?" She turned toward his voice, and her face did something complicated. Relief mixed with embarrassment, the way people look when they've needed help badly enough that they're surprised it finally arrived. "I'm fine," she said, automatically. The way people say it when they're not. "Your hand was up." A pause. "My phone died. I've been waiting for the 9. My knee," she stopped. "I can't walk far right now." Leonard set his grocery bag down on the sidewalk. He looked at the bus schedule posted on the shelter wall. He had a phone. He checked the transit app. "9's not running tonight," he said. "There's a water main break on Crestwood. They rerouted everything east." She looked at him. "No one told me." "They never do." He picked up his grocery bag. "Where are you going?" "Fairfield Street. 412. He did the math. 12 blocks. Cold. Her knee, whatever that meant. "My car's 2 blocks from here," Leonard said. "I'll drive you." She looked at him. The way a woman who has lived alone for 11 years looks at a strange man who offers a ride at night. Careful. Weighing. "I'm a retired postal worker," he said. "I played cards with 4 men tonight. I lost $3. I'm not having a great enough evening to be interesting." He held up the grocery bag. "And I bought oat milk and a can of soup. I'm not a threat, ma'am. I'm just a man with a car and 12 minutes. Something in her face shifted. She almost smiled. "Nora," she said. "My name's Nora, Leonard. Come on, let me help you up." He got her to her feet carefully, took most of her weight on his right side, walked her the 2 blocks to where his car was parked. A 2009 Civic that was clean, reliably maintained, and unlocked only because the lock mechanism on the passenger side had stopped working 2 winters ago, and he kept forgetting to fix it. He turned the heat on full and aimed all the vents toward her. She sat in the passenger seat with her hands in her lap, not completely comfortable, not completely uncomfortable, watching him. He drove like a man who had nowhere urgent to be, attentive, unhurried, the right speed for the roads. "You from this neighborhood?" she asked. "Granger Street. 26 years, I'm on Fairfield. 19, practically neighbors," he said. "Practically." She looked out the window. The city moved past, lit up windows and wet pavement, and the occasional person walking too fast to look up. She thought about 41 people. She didn't say it out loud. Leonard pulled onto Fairfield, slowed down. "Which building?" "The brick one." 412. "You can just stop out front." "I'll park." "You don't have to. It's a Thursday," he said. "I have nowhere to be." He parked, walked her to the door, waited while she found her keys. She was slow at it, hands still stiff from the cold, and held the door when she pushed through. "Thank you," she said in the lobby. She said it plainly, without excess. She was a woman who had learned to mean what she said. "I mean that. I know you do." He turned to go, then stopped. "How's the knee?" "It'll be fine in the morning. You have someone who can check on you tonight." A pause that was half a second longer than it should have been. "I'm fine." He reached into his jacket pocket. He didn't have a business card. He was 63 and retired. He hadn't had a business card. In 9 years, he found a receipt from the grocery store. turned it over, wrote his number in the margin with a pen he had to click 3 times before it worked. If you need anything tonight, or if the knee gets worse. He held it out. No obligation, just a number. She took it. She looked at it. She put it in her coat pocket. Good night, Nora. Good night, Leonard. He walked back to his car, drove home, made the soup, read for an hour, went to bed thinking about nothing in particular, because as far as he knew, this had been a regular Thursday. He was wrong. What happened next? He found out about in pieces, starting with the phone call the following morning. He didn't recognize the number. He almost didn't answer. Is this Leonard Rafferty? A man's voice. Formal. Controlled. That's me. My name is Daniel Cho. I'm the executive assistant to Nora Beauchamp. A pause. Well, to the Beauchamp group. Leonard was quiet for a moment. Then, I'm sorry, who? Mrs. Beauchamp asked me to reach out. She'd like to invite you to breakfast this morning if you're available. I can give you an address. Leonard sat up in bed, looked at the ceiling. The woman I drove home last night? Her name is Nora Beauchamp? Yes, sir. From Fairfield Street. She stays at her Fairfield apartment when she's doing site visits on the east side, Daniel said, choosing his words carefully. She has several properties in this part of the city. Leonard didn't say anything for 4 seconds. How'd you get my number? He asked. She found the receipt you wrote it on, Daniel said. She called me at 7 this morning. Leonard got dressed. He didn't know what he was walking into. He told himself that on the drive over. He kept telling himself that as he followed the address to a neighborhood 20 minutes north, where the streets got quieter and the trees got older and the houses got bigger in a way that didn't show off. Old money. The kind that's comfortable with itself. The house was stone and dark wood, set back from the road, unremarkable in the way that very serious things sometimes are. Daniel Cho met him at the door. Mid-30s, organized, the kind of person who remembered everything. He led Leonard through a hallway lined with photographs, construction sites, groundbreakings, a woman in a hard hat shaking hands with people whose names Leonard didn't know, into a sunlit dining room at the back of the house. Nora was already seated. She was wearing a different coat. Gray wool, but a different one. Her hair was down. She looked rested. She looked entirely different in this room than she'd looked on that bench, and yet somehow exactly the same. Sit down, Leonard, she said. I had them make eggs. He sat down. Someone brought coffee without him asking. He looked around the room, at the photographs on the wall, at the woman across the table, at the view through the window of a garden that was clearly professionally maintained. Nora Beauchamp, he said. Not a question. Yes, the Beauchamp group. Yes. He turned his mug in his hands. I drove you home in a 2009 Civic with a broken passenger door lock. You did, and you built it from nothing, she said simply. Not boasting, just answering. My first property was a 4-unit on the east side, 1987. I bought it for $42,000 with money I borrowed from my mother and a small business loan that took 3 banks to approve. I now have 61 properties across 8 cities and a portfolio worth. She paused. More than I need to tell you at breakfast. Leonard looked at her. He thought about the bench. The hand raised barely above shoulder height. 41 people who had decided, without breaking stride, that this was not their problem. Why were you at a bus stop? He asked. On a Thursday night in November? Nora picked up her coffee. Because my driver had a family emergency, and I wasn't going to ask Daniel to come get me at that hour, and I thought the 9 ran until 10. She looked at him over the rim. And because I've always taken the bus when I can, I don't like being driven places. I don't like being handled. A pause. Apparently sometimes I need to revise that position. Your knee, he said. That's not just cold. She set the cup down. Osteoarthritis. Right knee. I've been managing it for 4 years. Last night it flared badly. I couldn't walk more than half a block. She said it the way she said everything. Plain direct, without drama or apology. I don't like talking about it. You don't have to. I know I don't. He ate his eggs. They were very good eggs. She ate quietly across from him. There was something comfortable about the silence which surprised him, given that he was sitting in a room he'd had no expectation of ever being in. "Tell me about yourself," Nora said eventually. "Retired postal worker. 27 years of service. I have a daughter in Portland. She works in environmental law. I have a brother in Tampa I talk to on Sundays. I walk 3 miles a day for my hip. I play cards on Thursdays. And I read 2 books a week, mostly history." "What kind of history?" "Labor history, mostly. The building of things. How cities become cities." She looked at him differently after that, just for a second. "What did you do at the Postal Service?" "Started as a carrier. Moved to operations. Ended in route planning, optimizing delivery systems for the district. 15 people on my team when I retired." "You managed a team." "I did. Did you like it?" He thought about it. "I liked the problem solving. I liked when a system that wasn't working started working. I liked knowing the neighborhood I was managing, the rhythms of it, who needed what and when." Nora was very still. The way someone is still when they're listening more carefully than they're letting on. "What do you do now?" she asked. "With your days?" Leonard looked at her. He was a man who was honest about things because he'd found it was easier. "Mostly I try to figure that out," he said. "I thought I'd be ready for retirement. I thought I'd fill it up somehow. But I miss having work that actually mattered to something larger than myself." He put down his fork. "I'm not complaining. I have a good life. I don't think I'm done yet." Nora set down her coffee. She looked at him the way she'd looked at 41 people the night before. Except this was different. This was not counting. This was recognizing. "I brought you here to thank you," she said, "and I would have been satisfied with that. But I want to ask you something else now." "All right. Do you know anything about property management? Specifically the kind that involves residential units where the tenants are elderly, low income, or both?" He was quiet. "I know something about it," he said. "My mother lived in a building like that for 8 years. I know what works and what doesn't." "From the inside," she said. "From the inside." She folded her hands on the table. The gesture of a woman who had made decisions in boardrooms for 40 years, who knew what she was doing when she folded her hands. "I have 6 residential buildings on the east side," she said. "Mixed income, majority elderly tenants, some affordable housing designation. I've been trying to find a community liaison for those buildings for 14 months. Someone who actually knows the neighborhoods. Someone the tenants will talk to, trust, tell the truth to. Not because it's a job title, but because they've earned it." She looked at him directly. "Someone who has spent 30 years learning how a neighborhood actually functions." Leonard didn't say anything. "The person I had before," Nora continued, "was 29, well-intentioned, and completely wrong for it. She treated the tenants like a project. They stopped talking to her after 3 months and started calling me directly, which is how it's been for the past year." She paused. "I have 68 calls from tenants in that voicemail folder right now. That is not a functional system." "No," he said. "It isn't. I'm not offering charity, Leonard. I'm offering work. Real work, with a real salary and real responsibility. The buildings have issues, maintenance coordination, communication gaps, a heating system in the Orchard Street building that 3 contractors have looked at and not fixed properly. And the tenants have needs that aren't being heard." She met his eyes. "I think you could hear them." He turned his mug in his hands. Outside, the garden sat quiet in November gray. "You're doing this because I drove you home," he said. "I'm doing this because of who you are," she said. The drive was evidence, not payment. She leaned forward slightly, just slightly. "There were 41 people at that bus stop last night, Leonard. 41. I know because I counted. People with more than you, probably. More money in their wallets. Warmer coats. Cars parked nearby. Not one of them stopped." She paused. "You stopped. Not because you had more, but because you paid attention. And in my experience, people who pay attention really pay attention. Not just to what they're supposed to notice, but to what's actually in front of them. Those people are very hard to find, and very valuable when you do." Leonard was quiet for a long time. long enough that Daniel appeared briefly in the doorway and Nora waved him off. "The Orchard Street heating system?" Leonard said finally. "What's the problem with it?" Nora almost smiled. "The zone valves on the upper floors aren't calibrated correctly. Contractors keep replacing parts when what needs to happen is a full system rebalance. I have a report somewhere. Can I see it? I'll have Daniel send it to you today." Leonard nodded. He looked out at the garden. He thought about his walking route, 3 miles a day for his hip, through the east side streets he'd spent 27 years delivering mail through. He knew every block. He knew which buildings had management that picked up the phone and which didn't. He knew which intersections flooded in heavy rain and which side streets never got plowed first. He knew Mrs. Okafor on Dunmore Street, who'd been waiting 3 months for her landlord to fix a radiator, and James on the corner of 10th, who was 81 and had nobody to take out his trash on bad weather days. He'd been walking those blocks for 27 years and had not figured out what to do with that knowledge since he stopped carrying mail through them. "I have a condition," he said. Nora raised one eyebrow. "The Orchard Street building. There's a woman named Deirdre on the 3rd floor. She's 77. She has been requesting a grab bar installed in her bathroom for 6 months. I know because I ran into her on my walk, and she mentioned it the way people mention things they've given up on." He looked at Nora. "That gets fixed first, before anything else." Nora looked at him for a moment. Then she picked up her phone and typed something. "Put it down." "Daniel," she called. Daniel appeared in the doorway. "Orchard Street, Unit 3C. Deirdre, what's her last name, Leonard?" Deirdre Foss, Unit 3C. Grab bar, bathroom. Today. Call Morrison's and tell them I want it done by this afternoon." Daniel nodded and disappeared. Nora looked back at Leonard. "Anything else?" "Not yet," he said. "Give me a week." For the first time since he'd sat down, she smiled fully. It changed her whole face. Not the smile of someone pleased with themselves, but the smile of someone who had been waiting a long time for a particular answer and had just received it. They shook hands across the breakfast table. Hers was strong, the way hands are when they've worked for a long time. 6 weeks later, the Orchard Street building looked different. Not the outside. The outside was the same brick and iron fence and cracked front walk. But inside, the hallways had been repainted the color the tenants had voted on. Pale yellow, warm but not loud. The heating system had been rebalanced by a mechanical engineer. Leonard had tracked down through a contact from his postal operations days. Every floor had heat, evenly distributed. For the first time in 3 winters, Leonard had a small office on the ground floor of the building, a converted storage room, his idea because he wanted to be in the building, not visiting it. He was there every morning by 8. He walked the hallways. He knocked on doors. He sat in Mrs. Foss's kitchen, and she showed him photos of her grandchildren, and he told her about his daughter in Portland, and they talked for 40 minutes about nothing and everything. And when he left, she said, "You're the first person from management who ever sat down." He told Nora about that on his second visit to the house on the north side. They'd developed a standing meeting, Thursdays at 9, which Nora kept even on weeks when her schedule was heavy. She showed up for it the way she showed up for everything. Prepared, direct, unhurried. "That's the point," she said when he told her about Mrs. Foss. "That's the entire point." "I know," he said. "I just wanted you to know we're hitting it." The other 5 buildings came next, one by one, at a pace Leonard set. He refused to rush it. He'd learned, in 27 years of operations, that systems fail when they're pushed to move faster than they can sustain. He moved carefully. He documented everything. He built a tenant communication system, low-tech, partly paper, partly phone tree, because not everyone had reliable internet. That meant a concern reported on a Monday, got a response by Wednesday, and a resolution timeline by Friday. Nora called it the most functional management structure she'd seen in 15 years of owning residential buildings. Leonard called it common sense. He didn't say it modestly. He said it because it was true, and because Nora was the kind of person you didn't need to perform for. His daughter called from Portland 6 months in, during their regular Sunday call. Dad, I was reading something about the Beauchamp Group's East Side initiative. There's a management liaison mentioned, a Leonard R. Is that you? It's me. A pause. How did you end up working for Nora Beauchamp? I drove her home from a bus stop. His daughter was quiet for a moment. Then, of course you did. On the wall of his Orchard Street office, Leonard put two things. A transit map of the East Side, updated and annotated in his own handwriting. Every building, every route, every gap he'd found and intended to close. And next to it, a grocery store receipt. The one he'd written his phone number on, turned over in his jacket pocket on a Thursday night in November, pressed into a woman's hand in a lobby on Fairfield Street. No explanation on the receipt. No label. He knew what it meant. The tenants who'd visited his office and asked about it got a shrug and a redirect to whatever they'd actually come in to talk about. Deirdre Foss figured it out eventually. The way sharp women in their 70s often figure things out. She came in one afternoon for her regular check-in and looked at the receipt for a long time. That's how it started, she said. It wasn't a question. That's how it started. She nodded once, the way people nod at things that confirm what they already suspected about the world. I waited 2 weeks after my last landlord promised that grab bar, she said. Then I stopped expecting it. She looked at him. It's been on my wall 6 weeks. I look at it every morning. Leonard didn't say anything. He handed her the printout she'd come in for. The updated tenant resource directory he'd put together. Phone numbers and services and programs organized by category, laminated, 1 copy per unit. She took it, looked at it, put it carefully in her purse. You know what the difference is, she said, on her way out the door, between someone who does good things for people and someone who actually cares about people. He looked at her. The person who does good things, she said, does it and then waits for you to notice. She paused, hand on the doorframe. The person who actually cares does it and then makes sure it worked. She left. He thought about that for the rest of the afternoon. That evening, he walked his 3 miles, same route, same pace, same hip that didn't fully cooperate. He passed the bus shelter on Meridian, the one with the bench, the number 9 stop. A man in a thin jacket was sitting on it, young, looking at a dark phone screen. The bus board said the 9 was running. He'd be fine. Leonard kept walking. He didn't need to stop for everyone. He'd learned to tell the difference. But he looked. He always looked now. He'd always looked, probably. But it meant something different now. Now that he understood what happens when one person does. I've been thinking about that night a lot since I first heard this story. About 41 people and one man with a 2009 Civic and a grocery bag from a store that closed 4 years ago. I keep coming back to one thing. Those 41 people weren't bad people. Most of them probably were decent people having a regular Thursday. They had places to go, and things to carry, and problems of their own, and an old woman with her hand barely up at a bus shelter was not their problem. That's the thing about being invisible. It's not that people wish you harm. It's that they've organized their attention and you didn't make the list. Leonard made her the list. Not because he had more. Not because it was convenient. Because he was the kind of person who looked, who paid attention, who had spent 30 years learning how to see what was actually in front of him, and couldn't stop doing it even after he retired, even when he was on his way home from losing $3 at cards. And that moment, that one choice, on a regular Thursday, 3 blocks from his own apartment, it didn't just change 2 lives. It changed 6 buildings and 68 voicemails, and a grab bar on a 3rd-floor wall in the Orchard Street building, and the heating system, and the pale yellow hallways, and Mrs. Foss's kitchen, and a laminated resource directory in 114 apartments. It changed Deirdre Foss's mornings. That's the thing about paying attention. You never know exactly what it's going to become. So I want to ask you something honestly. The way Deirdre asked Leonard, are you looking? Not just with your eyes, but with the part of you that notices things other people have decided aren't their business, because somebody, somewhere near you, has their hand up. Not dramatically, not asking loudly, just up. You don't have to fix everything. You just have to look. Drop in the comments and tell me, would you have stopped? And if you've ever been the one waiting, with your hand up, tell me about that too. I want to hear it. Like this video, subscribe to this channel, because these are the stories that remind us what we're actually capable of. Not in the big dramatic moments, but on a regular Thursday, on our way home, when nobody's watching. I'll see you in the next one.